And a psyop has three parts. First, you get the signals or the triggers. Then you get the optics, which is basically how they're going about it. And then the bottom line of a psyop is, how do we want you to think, or how do we want you to behave? The pandemic was a psyop. And when Fauci in an interview said, we just didn't create enough fear in people to get that. All right. So their psyop was to scare us that we would die with this virus getting to us. And what they were able to do is scare us so much, and then they put us in what they call lockdown, which was really house arrest. They couldn't call it house arrest, but what was it? You couldn't go out. I was living in UK, and there was someone in a building next to me that had a few people over, and the police came and fined them £10,000 for violating, because you weren't supposed to.
It's like a 24/7 curfew, except for emergencies or something like that, right there. It was a lockdown.
It was a lockdown. You could maybe go out for a half an hour or an hour. I know what they were in the UK, because that's where I was during the lockdown. But it basically is the totalitarian ruling of stripping us of our freedom and our ability to think. And that has been the biggest psyop, but it backfired. Lockdown backfired big time. And one of the biggest ways it backfired is that there weren't distractions around us. We didn't have all these obligations. We weren't running in the car, dropping the kids off, going to the grocery store, getting to work, getting home. And it gave us time to think. And it allowed our eyes to open up. It allowed our heart. We got closer to God and realized this is a spiritual war.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that happened to me. Even to people who's living like mine, is being close to God and leading other people in this kind of path. I still got closer to God, right? I mean, it's not, you can't go anywhere.
Well, exactly. But here's the other part, is that the psyop before, by emphasizing science and authority, it conditioned people to not trust and not believe in their own opinion or assessment. And the biggest mental, psychological, and emotional transition we all went through was all those things over the years that we saw and we said, something's wrong with this picture. And we had time to sort out what was wrong with those pictures. But most importantly, we trusted ourselves. So by talking to God, and also talking to ourselves, we became much, much clearer. And we were able to prioritize and, most importantly, trust ourselves and not buy into the science.
It's like when that happened, and I didn't even, a lot of people in our generation, the younger ones, I don't even know if they've seen that movie, The Matrix. It was like that. It was like we were starting to get red-pilled in our homes, like something is off. And then when we started getting COVID and we started hearing that ivermectin was a cure or a solid treatment, the pharmacist said, no, we're not allowed to give it to you. And we're going, what do you mean you're not allowed to give it to us? Different doctors were saying it was a cure. And the pharmacist that we went to said, I can't give it to you. I'm sorry. I finally went to my doctor, because I had this concierge doctor that I use. He's in a different state. And a different one that I have now. But I mean, I went to him, I called him up and I said, if you don't get me this ivermectin, why am I paying you monthly all this money? Well, but I said, if you don't, and so suddenly he strong armed the pharmacist, and I got the ivermectin, or in this case, it was a budesonide. They weren't even going to give you that. This was a takedown not only of America, or an attempted takedown. This was a takedown of our health. This was a depopulation agenda, right? And a takedown. You can say what you want to say. I don't know what you're comfortable saying. It was a takedown of America and a takedown of our health. What are your thoughts on that?
I would go broader. It was
Okay.
a takedown of people around the globe, because it was the people that thought we needed to have a population decrease, and they wanted population to only be 500 million.
Yeah.
And they were the ones that conspired behind it in September 2019 with John Hopkins and the WHO and Fauci and his tag-alongs, Bill Gates. They ran a test case if a pandemic came.
Really?
Yes. And what would happen? And they launched it much sooner than they had wanted to, because
the test or the real pandemic?
The real thing. Because that happened in September 2019.
Yeah.
It was the beginning of 2020, and really over Christmas that China went into lockdown.
Yeah.
That they launched it. They were getting too eager, and they believed in themselves too much, and their arrogance prevented them from seeing that they couldn't scare us enough, and their timing of pushing it to turn us into serfs. They wanted to destroy our businesses. They wanted us to become dependent on them. And the biggest backfire is that what it created was the strength of we the people around the globe, even with all the ways they punished medical people, ruined their lives, all of that. And then after all of that, 4 years later, we hear Fauci say, we didn't use fear enough. We didn't make them scared enough.
I don't know why.
Go ahead.
Dr. J, I don't know why that guy is walking around. There's part of me, a lot of people I've heard him say, well, he's not walking around. This is like a substitute for him. And maybe so. I'm not sure how he could be walking around a free man with everything he's done. He's killed millions of people, according to statisticians. You probably can't say about, what are your thoughts about that? Why is he walking around, or appear to be walking around?
All right. I don't know about doubles or not.
Yeah.
I do have to say that quite a few years ago, I watched in the UK a 6-part TV series called The Capture. And it was using AI to change a recording of someone's behavior, and then be able to accuse them of a crime. But season 2 and season 3 are really important. It's on Peacock for people to watch, because what they're doing is they're using AI where we think we're listening to the person.
Oh, man.
And they're talking, but they put a script behind, and that everyone should watch that to understand what goes on to try to fool us. But let's back up a minute about Fauci, because when I was doing my psychological training in San Francisco, it was during the AIDS crisis. And Fauci he didn't have an administrative assistant if you wanted to get in touch with him. He hired an outside PR firm. And the reason that I know this is that a man named Kramer had led the gay community in New York. He also wrote a play called The Normal Heart. And we were allowed to criticize in the press. He took out a 1-page ad against Fauci, calling him a fraud. And if you go back and understand that Fauci, and right now I'm having a senior moment, so who he worked with is Gallo.
Okay.
Fauci and Gallo claimed that they identified the source of the AIDS virus when in fact it was two epidemiologists at the Louis Pasteur Clinic in France that had. And then what Fauci did was he made it illegal for anyone to challenge their findings. And they announced it at a global meeting. Oh, yes. And 7 years, he would not use any of the protocols, the different kinds of medication that was helping AIDS victims. And he used remdesivir back then when it
he used that on AIDS patients, are you saying?
He did.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And it had been taken off the market as too dangerous as a cancer drug. But that was the only thing that he used. If you go back and you look at who Fauci's kind of godfathers and godmothers were in the people that had money, you had the Annenbergs, you had a lot of the very wealthy Republicans, the Nancy Reagan friends.
Really?
Oh yes, that were there, and they were homophobic. So
were they deep state or just homophobic?
I couldn't say deep state because I'm not sure we were so clear back then. But what it was they were the moneyed people. And at that time, the Republican Party was very exclusive.
Yeah.
It was exclusionary. It was thought to just take care of the wealthy. And Reagan did some very good things to help the research into AIDS, but not enough. And I think there were some undercurrent things because I can't tell you how many of my patients were forced to take a vaccine and they had their blood frozen. And years later, they discovered that vaccine had given them the HIV that turned into AIDS.
So they're doing the same trick, only back then it was they were giving them AIDS in a supposed vaccine. Oh my gosh.
Well, and even in COVID SARS-2, the Indian epidemiologists had discovered that HIV was in the latest SARS-CoV-2, and they wrote a journal article with all of their research evidence. And you can find this in all of India media. Fauci threatened them, and he funded these projects all over the globe. The amount of money he had to control this whole area around the world, and they had to pull that article. So,
Dr. Jan, who was giving him the money? It wasn't probably his own money, right? Someone else was giving him the money?
This was our government money, and not that I necessarily wanted to get into COVID, but I think people need to understand some dynamics that go on behind a psyop. And we started to see those things. So, for example, what people, even today, when I hear some people talking about Echo Health Alliance, which was the Canadian counterpart that worked with the Wuhan lab, they forget that Ralph Barrick at the University of North Carolina was the first one in 1999 to be able to figure out how to infect human lungs with SARS-CoV-1. In 2002, he patented his ability to do that. That was the foundation of the subsequent SARS-CoV-2. So they have known about this. And then this research. I don't know why I'm having so many senior moments of terminology this morning.
No, that's me. That's me
But gain of function. It'll
gain
come
of function.
slowly. The gain of function research that he did when Obama found out, he stopped it. But Fauci didn't really stop it. He turned it over to Echo Health Alliance in Canada to continue it with the Wuhan lab. In 2015, when it was one of the, whether it was Ebola or bird flu, or Fauci recommended we take HCQ. See, and it was, for many of us,
Really?
if we did just a little reading, the question was, if he recommended it in 2015 and HCQ was fine, why is it not okay in 2020? So the people that, I think the majority of us were awake. I don't know what the actual percentages are of people that bought into the vaccine. They might have had to take the vaccine knowing full well that something was wrong with this picture, but they needed a paycheck. They needed to go to work.
Well, I mean, I have a relative, I won't say how related or anything, but she had felt like she wanted to go back to work, and she had been a conscientious objector before. She didn't want to keep working she's actually working in the medical field, and so she quit. And then she was just, I think, going crazy, staying at home for a couple of years. She was desperate to get back, and so I think she second guessed herself. I think it was totally innocent. I think she didn't want to take a vaccine. She was kind of against it, but she decided she needed to work more, and she got a turbo cancer out of it. Now, we helped her find help, and her help for the cancer, which she's now walking free of, was ivermectin and HCQ and a bunch of other supplements. HCQ is hydroxychloroquine, in case anybody doesn't know. And she had heard of Dr. Makis, and we helped them with that, and that protocol helped her, and she's free of it. So, it's intense what you decide to do because you just need to. That's not a good reason,
right? Right. And then of course you're kicking yourself, but sometimes you have to play the game to survive. It's always a trade-off. But that was when we also started to realize that if they're lying to us about this, how many other things politically have they lied to us about to get us to behave a certain way?
And Dr. Jan, how about medically? How much are they lying about us medically? Yeah, all of that. I'll let you keep going, but I wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, well, and food substances. And why do we have to have gluten-free if they didn't poison our wheat? Because you talk to any American who has a problem with wheat, and if they travel overseas to another country, they say, why can I eat the bread there? Because the bread there is not full of chemicals.
You go to Italy, you can eat anything you want, and you won't get all that weight, and you won't get all that sickness.
Right. I mean, French eat. They enjoy their food. There is dessert and cheese and everything else. And why do they stay so slim? And so I think, and I haven't studied this in detail, but I think it's something for all of us to start thinking about. What was the huge psyop from pharma to make us so ill, so fat? So here's another example of how they pull psyops on us. Shouldn't do fat shaming. Okay, so we now have a straitjacket. We should never fat shame. And what did it do? Have you seen how many people have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger?
I never thought of it that way. You're right, because they're taught to enjoy their body the way it is, and I must have been born this way. So then they'll have magazine covers of very, very fat women or men, whatever it is. Yeah,
Right.
I hadn't thought of that as a psyop. Wow.